My job interview was the very first time on Dordt's campus. And my wife saw Dordt for the first time when we came out to buy a house. It's 1983, and I came to teach physics, the same role I have now. Found a really good church home at Covenant CRC, and the Dordt community was then and is now just wonderful. Lots of great people here.
When I think of John's personality as a faculty member, he continues that tradition of being willing to have a conversation. If you run across him in the hallway, I see him regularly doing that with students or particularly with other colleagues. Deep conversations about what it means to be a Christian faculty member, what it means to have a Christian college in the Reformed tradition, what it means to do science Christianly. I know John is excellent at those conversations and appreciates those conversations, and that's been a contribution that he's made as one of our kind of core science faculty over a long career.
John has been kind of my mentor over the past 8 years as I've been a faculty member here at Dordt. He's taught me a lot about teaching physics and how to teach physics and how to care about students and how to really focus on student learning and how to measure whether or not students are learning. He's super passionate about that kind of thing.
Zwart is just the kind of professor where he has so much joy for what it is that he does and what it is that he's doing. And Zwart isn't satisfied with his students or with me just knowing a set of equations or a set of procedures to just plug into. But what he really wants us to understand is why. And he has more joy for physics than anybody that I've met, and he really instilled that joy in me with my first 2 semesters of physics. But really that love of physics is something that he's instilled in me that I've picked up on and wish to continue to pursue.
John was very, I've said it a few times, passionate about physics, but also passionate about learning and improving his teaching methods. I know he went to some courses to improve teaching methods, and he did work over the summer to improve his courses. He always put together really cool experiments. And
in the lab, he was one of the first faculty to introduce computer interfaced hardware into the science labs. As always, he did that very thoughtfully and discerningly. I remember him trying it out, sort of coming back from a workshop or something like that, and diving in full and turning the whole lab over and doing everything with this new equipment.
Huge change in technology. I was thinking of this. When I was a college freshman, I used to slide rule. I got my first calculator after that, and so now we're doing computer interfaced experiments all the time, and so it's been a big change.
I've gotten to work with John just for about 6 months because I started here this last fall. But I've really enjoyed his enthusiasm, especially in the lab. He loves to run experiments, and he loves to show students all kinds of the neat aspects of physics.
One of my favorite memories of Professor Zwart is about 6 months after he had his heart attack. He had a radioactive test, a nuclear medicine stress test, and he came back to campus after the stress test, and I was teaching a physics lab, and he came into lab and he goes, "Where are the Geiger counters?" And I was like, "I don't know." So we found the Geiger counters, and then like 10 minutes later I walked into the prep room, and he was standing in the prep room with the Geiger counter and his laptop, and he was measuring the radioactive levels of his chest as a result of having these tracers. And then he took the laptop home overnight and woke himself up several times in the middle of the night to take measurements of his radioactivity, and then later went back and fit mathematical models to that, just because he loves experimental physics, and it just kind of describes who he is and what he does and what he loves about physics.
Professor Zwart has more passion for the material itself, the material that he's teaching, than almost any professor that I've encountered in truth, and it's really incredible to see, and it's contagious if you spend enough time with him, that he simply loves all of physics and the entire discipline of physics. And yes, he loves his students, yes, he loves teaching, and especially he loves Christ, but just seeing his eyes light up as he teaches all of this material and just understanding the universe.
John was one of the recipients of the John Calvin Award, which speaks to the way his colleagues and students and the administration think of him in terms of his Reformed teaching. And I think that's one of the pieces of his career that is noteworthy.
One of his favorite parts of the creeds is Belgic Confession, Article number 2, where it talks about the means by which we know God. And that really kind of flavors what John does, and why he does what he does, and why he believes that it's important that we do physics, and why it's important that we teach other people to do physics, because it's really another means by which we know God.
The joy in the creation, that's just such a wonderful part. Another thing to mention, Belgic Confession, Article 2, How Do We Know God? 2 books. The creation, and more specifically the Bible. So in some ways I think of myself as a theologian of the first book. And that's been kind of a theme with my teaching, and I'm looking forward to learning more about it in ways that I can't when we have to focus on classes.
It's no great secret that John and I spend a lot of time talking to each other. If you can't find me in my office, there's a pretty good chance you'll find me in his, and vice versa. We both enjoy puns, and so we can dive into good, bad, and horrible puns at a moment's notice. I always find electricity be the most fruitful, because it's shocking and enlightening and very conducive to lots of bad humor. So, and you may groan now.
And it's just funny to see his process of retirement, and that he really has stayed around for so long because he really truly loves his students and loves what he's doing. And I'm excited for him and whatever it is that he does next.
Yeah, just wonderful colleagues on the faculty here, wonderful students. I'll miss that the most.
John, you've been a fantastic mentor, and I am so grateful for all of the ways that you've taught me how to be a better Christian and a better teacher. Thank you.
And I really believe that Dordt would not be #1 in student engagement without the passion and the caring and the interaction of professors like Professor Zwart.
So I would just say, John, wow, 36 years of teaching at Dordt College. It's going to be different for you and Lori. And I hope that God blesses you. I trust that He will. But I just want to say thank you on behalf of the entire Dordt community for the way in which you've served here faithfully. You served here with excellence, with joy. So God's blessings in your retirement.